Once upon a time, there was a nurse working in the adult oncology unit who had an eerie story to share. This registered nurse, RN, revealed that their department was often the place where patients spent their final days, transitioning into hospice care. Unfortunately, not all patients made it to that stage, resulting in a higher number of deaths compared to other units in the hospital. As a consequence, nurses from different floors avoided visiting the adult oncology wing due to reports of paranormal activity. Nevertheless, the nurses in the adult oncology unit were deeply devoted to their jobs and fostered strong connections with their patients, getting to know them on a profound level. Consequently, the nursing team began to notice a peculiar pattern in the way their patients passed away. It seemed that death occurred in groups of 3 on this particular floor. One fateful night, after 2 patients had already passed away, a beloved patient who resided in room 8 and held a special place in the hearts of the entire nursing unit met the same fate. This occurrence further reinforced the belief in the death comes in threes phenomenon. The following morning, a new patient occupied the room of the recently deceased patient. During the RN's orientation with the new patient, they started explaining how to use the TV remote control. However, before the explanation could be completed, the TV turned on by itself, vigorously switching between channels at high volume. The nurse was startled by this inexplicable occurrence and attempted to turn off the TV, but it remained stubbornly on. Finally, through manual intervention, the nurse managed to power off the TV, feeling relieved that the new patient seemed oblivious to the bizarre incident. Later that day, while at the nurse's desk, the nurse encountered a colleague who was searching for a replacement remote control. Curious, the nurse inquired about the situation, and their colleague responded, "The remote and TV in rooms X and Y are malfunctioning." These were the exact rooms where the 2 other patients had passed away the previous night. I am a psychiatrist, and during my training years, I worked for 6 months at a ward treating patients with depressive and anxiety disorders. It was an old building who had been housing psychiatric patients since the mid-1920s. On our floor, we had 13 beds and a nursing station, a living room, and a few conference rooms. One day, a few weeks in, I am interviewing a patient who, when asked about sleeping patterns, tells me she have heard a baby crying at night, waking her up. There are no babies in that hospital, as the place is situated far away from housing areas, and there were restricted visiting hours. Afterwards, the nurse pulls me aside and tells me that the baby crying thing is not a psychotic symptom. She is very serious about this, but won't elaborate. I kind of shrug it off, as either way it does not change the diagnostic or treatment, and forgets about the experience. Around 3 months in my stay, I sit in the nurse's station, and 3 nurses behind me are talking. One of them says, "She is very active today," and the other says, "Really? Oh, hadn't noticed." I turn around and ask them who they are talking about. They look at each other, and then one of them hesitantly says, "Well, there is a baby here. She cries sometimes." I, of course, says no, but they just kind of shrug and smiles. Not 30 seconds later, I hear it. It sounded far away, but not too far. A cry, clearly a baby's cry, sounding like it is separated from us by maybe 2 or 3 walls. I am perplexed and look at the nurses. They look at me like, "Told you so." I of course ask about this, but they can't say anything else, but this faint baby cry is there and have been there always. Since then I heard it maybe 2, 3 times a week. I told a new doctor about it who laughed. However, a few weeks in her stay, she came to me, white as a sheet, and told me she heard it in their coffee break. All the nurses just kind of knew about it, and being in psychiatry, hearing that kind of stuff is not really something you brag about. I was transferred and haven't heard it since. I think about it sometimes, but I don't really know what to make of it. During my time as a PCA at Mercy Hospital, we frequently encountered peculiar occurrences. However, one particular incident stands out. Late one night, our unit received an unexpected call from a room on the floor directly below ours. It was baffling because the 4th floor had been closed for an extended period, and there were no individuals occupying that area. The adjacent side was a small rehabilitation unit. As we answered the call, we discovered that the room in question was devoid of occupants. It was designated for storage and lacked a call light or phone. The origin of the call remained unexplained. Additionally, We often experienced call lights activating in empty rooms, leaving us to speculate about the presence of a ghost. Allow me to share one more weird incident. Since I have a sensitivity to the paranormal, something peculiar occurred shortly after I began working the night shift. Remarkably, the elevator would inexplicably open just as I approached the button, happening repeatedly. This uncanny event seemed to be unique to me. Each time I stepped into the elevator, I couldn't help but utter, "Thank you, ghost."